Hello and welcome to our weekly dialogue with Helga Zepp-LaRouche. She is the founder and chairwoman of the Schiller Institute. Today is the 29th of January, 2025. I'm Harley Schlanger and I'll be your host. Well, Helga, the confirmation hearings for the three leading nominees of President Trump begin today with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nominee to head the Department of Health and Human Services, appearing before the Senate Finance Committee. Tomorrow, it will be Kash Patel, Trump's choice to head the FBI. He'll appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Tulsi Gabbard, nominated to serve as the Director of National Intelligence, who will oversee the work of 18 intelligence agencies, will appear before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Our first question has to do with this directly. The questioner says there's a concerted effort underway to defeat these nominees. In the cases of Patel and Gabbard, it's ironic because Dick Cheney and John Bolton are making common cause with Democratic Party neocons like Hillary Clinton to defeat them. Your organization is supporting Gabbard and Patel. Why do you see these appointments as so crucial, and why is the opposition to them so fierce?
Well, because obviously, based on previous statements by these two people, one has some hope that they will, go after what is generally called the deep state. Now, that is not such a, unclear question. It goes back to when President Eisenhower left office and he warned that the military-industrial complex could become a very serious problem for the United States. It obviously is related to the question of President Trump's decision to release the files concerning the assassination and cover-up of the Kennedy assassination, including Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, which pertains to the same apparatus. And Kennedy Jr., who is being questioned today in the hearing, basically said that he is convinced that what will come up is the role of the CIA in those assassinations. I think that this is opening up a Pandora's box. It's opening up who was behind Russiagate. Well, I think Trump has a very, he has an account to clear on that point. And we naturally are extremely familiar with that apparatus because that is exactly the same apparatus which went after my late husband, Lyndon LaRouche, and our organization in the United States in particular, but also internationally. So, this is the opposite of what America was supposed to be as a republic. This is the apparatus which is really behind, it's an instrument of all the policies which went wrong in the recent period internationally, including the interventionist wars, including the, regime change, color revolution. I mean, it's a real hornet's nest, Pandora's box, as I said. And there is some hope that Gabbard and Patel, who are not coming from that pedigree, will, basically act on behalf of President Trump to start cleaning this apparatus out, without which I think there is no hope that the United States will ever be a republic again and, get off this war policy which the Biden administration was pursuing. So I think, I just hope that all of these people will be confirmed. I think Kennedy was grilled quite a bit on his health policy. I mean, maybe Kennedy could also be a voice in respect to this deep state apparatus where he has a vested interest because it's related to his family history. So I think, one can only hope that these nominations go through.
We have a question from a supporter from the United Kingdom who writes, the United States intelligence community works closely with the Five Eyes intelligence operations of the British Empire. U.S. and NATO policy often seems to be steered by MI6, and he uses as an example the charge of Putin's electoral interference or support for Zelensky, and he refers to Starmer's 100-year agreement with Ukraine. If confirmed, do you think Gabbard might challenge the continuation of the special relationship? And with Trump rejecting the choice for British ambassador to the United States, do you think he might challenge the special relationship?
Well, I think these are hopeful signs. I mean, it is the apparatus which is behind the present geopolitical confrontation. I mean, if one makes a chronology of where do these policies come from, you can find many instances where it was the British instigating the US in pushing, more confrontation, like Starmer going to Washington, trying to convince Biden he should allow the use of the ATACMS, which Biden first refused with the argument that it might lead to a big war. And then he capitulated and did give the permission. And like that, you had Boris Johnson, who went to Kiev in March 22, ruining the possibility of a peace settlement, which had been negotiated between Putin and Zelensky in Istanbul. And that way, you can actually say it was this interference which is responsible for the probably 1 million dead people in Ukraine. So I think if anything would happen to end the special relationship, which is, what the British revenge, so to speak, was for the American War of Independence, by undoing the American Revolution, by convincing the American establishment to adopt the model of the British Empire as the basis for the unipolar world, then, being run by the special relationship between the US and Great Britain. So this goes to the core of what has been going wrong in the recent decades. So I hope only that, these people have the stamina and have the courage to pursue that. I mean, there was a couple of years ago a meeting by the Privy Council, I think in Great Britain, basically saying that under all circumstances, a second Trump administration had to be prevented. So that is, the stakes are very high, and one can only hope that this all will be clarified.
I have a question from you, or for you, from someone who identifies as a West Coast techie. He says, the big news from this week is China's rollout of its artificial intelligence platform, DeepSeek. It was called a surprise and compared with Sputnik. Why should it be a surprise that China is making technological advances, he writes. Are U.S. tech companies and intelligence that blind when it comes to China?
Well, I think we have seen again and again that the arrogance of the West, thinking that they are the good ones, that they are the superior ones, that the world should be ruled by an unipolar world. I mean, behind a lot of the absolutely blatant policy mistakes is this arrogance. And I think this will crash against the wall, because also what I see in terms of Trump's initial rather wild statements, saying that America is the people should love America in awe and intimidation and admiration. That's not the reality in the world. The reality is that Trump has to do a lot to undo what the previous administrations did with, the interventionist wars in the Middle East, which caused millions of people to die, with, enabling what Israel has been doing in Gaza, very far from it right now, and many, many other points. So I think what we see is a fatal self-overestimate on the side of the collective West, which you also see in the EU. I mean, they refuse to recognize that all their policies have failed. The Green Deal has failed. The liberal model has failed. And, I think it should have been obvious to anybody that China has bypassed the West in terms of scientific and technological progress, in terms of the number of patents they register every year, according to some Australian website, which is associated with the think tank, of, I think, 47 scientific and technological areas. China is leading in 38 of them. So, it's just completely normal that there would be a Sputnik effect in the area of artificial intelligence. And one can only hope that, this is waking people up in the West. But I don't think it will be able to bridge quickly, because, that arrogance has led to incredible mistakes. And unless those mistakes are analyzed and the axioms and the method of thinking which is behind it is corrected, I don't think it will be remedied easily.
Okay, your mention of arrogance and liberal policies. The next question is about Friedrich Merz. And the person writes, I was shocked by how arrogant Merz appeared in his interview in Davos. He said he will win, he'll work with Macron, he'll be able to find a coalition partner, and he will continue the war. And this person writes, is this really the person that will solve the problems for Germany?
No, and I can only hope that something can be done to prevent him from being the next chancellor. I mean, this person is notorious. He was the CEO of the German department of BlackRock. And that means, he is absolutely identical with the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, City of London, what really is the problem of this present system. Now he is, full of himself. He probably has made it by now already, a speech in the Bundestag where he will propose a migrant law, which basically is against the German constitution. It's against the Geneva Convention. It's against the EU law even, because it practically would eliminate the individual right for asylum. And that is, one of the basic human rights, if you want to name any of them. And, he already said that he will doesn't care if the AfD is supporting this. Now that, means just the AfD is on that inhuman policy concerning migrants as well. But that seems to be the new shaping of the consensus, because in Davos, Merz also said, well, if Trump complains about the trade deficit between the United States and the EU, we will solve it by just buying more LNG gas and buying more weapon systems from the United States. Now, this is not a German patriot speaking. This is, somebody speaking on behalf of BlackRock. LNG gas from the United States is one of the contributing reasons why the German economy is in a free fall. I mean, this is absolutely against the German interest, and I can only hope that at least some of the industries are waking up that Merz is not their representative, but he will continue the downfall of the German economy. So hopefully there will be still an earthquake, and if Merz counts on Macron, well, good luck. Macron is absolutely finished in France. He's hated, and the French government is completely unstable with no perspective of reaching stability. But, there is a danger that, the Meloni, liberal, conservative, anti-migrant policy, that seems to be some new agreement among all of these people, which would not be in contradiction to what Trump is saying. But that is not in the interest of the members of the European Union, as you can see by the centrifugal tendencies coming from, Slovakia, Hungary, Austria, Croatia, and as a tendency in Georgia, Bulgaria, Romania. So it's Vucic just resigned because there was a Maidan going on against Serbia. So the thing is very turbulent and very far from being stable. But the worst thing about Merz is that he said that that there needs to be a mobilization of the liberal democracies against the illiberal autocracies, that China and Russia are the opponents. With that attitude, Merz is really the opposite of what is needed in terms of resolving the strategic crisis by finding a new memorandum of understanding with the BRICS, with the global majority. And I think that if Merz would succeed in becoming chancellor, I think we are in for a stormy future, because he would cut the social system and cause misery in Germany for the population, and that will not last for long as well. But that's not a good perspective, I know, but the election is not over yet.
We have another question about Europe from someone who asks, why do European citizens tolerate comments such as the German defense minister saying Germany must become war ready, or NATO Secretary General Rutte calling for a shift to a wartime mindset? Have they forgotten the consequences of war? And he pointed out that this week is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and yet people march in these demonstrations and yet allow warmongers to continue. How is that the case in Europe?
Well, I can only say that there is an enormous effort to nudge the population, using this word, which was coined by Kash Sunstein, Obama's guru, to nudge the population into believing that they should get war ready, as if the German history would not exist. And it really is an amazing phenomena, not unnoticed by the majority of the world public. For example, today there was some speeches in the German Bundestag about, the 80 years liberation of Auschwitz, and people were saying, reporting horrifying accounts, how people are being murdered, defenseless, and so on. And I was thinking for a minute, maybe they're describing what happened in Gaza, and naturally they didn't mention that. And that they would say these things without mentioning Gaza is really an amazing phenomena. I mean, I cannot understand how the majority, it is not the majority of the people. It's hard to say if it's the majority or not, because the statistics and the mainstream media do really not give you an accurate picture. And I know that, for example, the people in East Germany absolutely don't buy this narrative about the NATO story. But, even the West German people, have they forgotten what Germany did in the Second World War to Russia? And given that history, I always thought, and I still think, that Russia was extremely generous in the period of the German unification by not presenting that historic record of Germany, but allowing Germany to be unified, becoming part of NATO, and having just the two provisions that NATO should not expand to the east and that foreign troops should not be stationed on the territory of East Germany, both of which are being violated in the most blatant form. So I can only think that this whole situation in Germany is not going to be peaceful. I mean, it will come to a point where either people recognize that the only way how Germany can survive is by, joining with the global majority and be a voice of peace. So one can only hope that many people are hearing that and support us, because that's what we are trying to do.
I have another question here from someone who wrote, I watched your discussion with Colonel Wilkerson last week with great interest. The topic was the decline of the American empire. Do you agree with him that America in the last 60 years has become an empire?
I think there is no doubt about it. If you look at the security doctrine of the United States, which was again publicly talked about by Rear Admiral Thomas Buchanan in a meeting in CSIS in November last year, where Buchanan said, that that the United States even takes the right to use nuclear weapons preemptively if the hegemony of the United States is threatened. Now, if that is not a statement of an empire, I don't know what. So it's not my interpretation. I think Buchanan gave the world the absolute proof. And, that unfortunately has been the American security doctrine essentially for the entire post-war period. But I think in the recent period, it has become more emphasized and more virulent. And I think I do agree with Wilkerson that if you look at with Colonel Wilkerson, that if you look down in history, all empires vanished because they have all the same flaw. They eventually, by becoming an empire, they overstretch, and with this overstretch, they lose the ability to keep control. And I think the effort to, I think what President Trump seems to be doing is he seems to want maybe not a global empire, maybe not a global policeman like the previous administration, but he definitely wants to change the border, because in his inaugural address, he said, that the United States is experiencing once again a period where it's growing. And then he proceeded to say Panama and annexing Canada and buying up Greenland, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. All of these things, may not yet amount to a full-fledged empire, but he for sure has an idea, not America great again, but America greater again. And I don't think that will go so well either.
Helga, I have one more question for you. It's someone who wrote and said, I have been very heartened to watch the events on Friday of the International Peace Coalition that you have initiated. It seems as though there are some people who are patriots and good citizens, but how do we get more people involved in this? I try to get my friends interested, and they say they've had it with politics. And in answering that question, why don't you give us a sense of what the topic will be this Friday with the next Zoom call from the International Peace Coalition?
Well, I think you have to keep at it and, join us also, not only talking to your friends and colleagues and so forth, but help us to do outreach, to contact other organizations, because I think, we are definitely heading towards a very danger of a chaos in the whole world. And obviously this will be topic at the next Friday meeting, where we will review, where does the world stand after 10 days or 12 days or whatever of the Trump administration, which has brought dramatic changes already. Then we will for sure take a look what is the situation in the Middle East, where Trump has now reiterated his proposal to just change the location of the Palestinians, move them out of Gaza into Egypt and Jordan and maybe even Indonesia. Apparently, none of these governments has been asked beforehand. They definitely have rejected it by far. This was the whole issue, that Egypt did not want the Palestinians in the Sinai desert, for example, because they fear that this could become a permanent source of destabilization for Egypt. So I think the likelihood that this will happen, I don't see in any way coming, because this is, the very identity of the Palestinians has been the whole time that they insist that they have a right to their own land. So that will be definitely a topic of discussion. And naturally, we do not look at this just as commentators, but we are pursuing very, very aggressively the idea that this is now the moment where the OASIS plan has to be put on the table, that you need to have a completely different approach. If we would agree and the countries of the region would agree to put the OASIS plan on the international agenda, meaning to create more fresh water by building canals, by building a lot of desalination, nuclear plants for desalination of large amounts of water so that you could irrigate the whole region. China has proven that they can irrigate vast territories. They have irrigated an area of the size of Germany in the northeast, what previously was a desert. These methods must be deployed to the Middle East. And that way, you create a vision for the future of cooperation. You need a two-state solution. Otherwise, I don't think it will happen. And then you need to go for a massive industrial development plan for everybody, for the Palestinians, but also for Lebanon, for Syria, for Yemen, Iraq. The whole region is in a urgent need to be built up. And I think that hopefully President Trump will agree to that. He has said repeatedly that he believes in building, and that would be a unique chance. And if he agrees with, let's say, President Putin, President Xi Jinping, Saudi Arabia, there is a new rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. If all the countries of the region agree, you can completely change the parameter and get real peace. So that will be for sure one topic at the Friday meeting, and we are presently mobilizing to get as many forces as possible to endorse the OASIS plan to make it heard. So that's one of the topics for sure.
Helga, just a quick question. Do you have any indication yet that there's motion toward a meeting between Trump and Putin or Trump and Xi Jinping? It's been brought up, but is there any concrete mention of it yet?
I'm pretty sure that it's being prepared. These summits are not normally happening out of the blue, but there is always a process of where the experts on the two sides are starting to discuss the topics. And then when they have reached a certain amount of understanding, then the presidents meet. And I do have indications, not 100% confirmed, but I do have indications that such a process is underway from both Russia and China. Putin said just today or yesterday that the Ukraine war could be ended in a few weeks. And in any case, the Ukraine situation is heading towards a point of decision. Even the head of the military intelligence, Budanov, said, that either there is peace for Ukraine until the summer or the very existence of Ukraine is at stake. Now, this is the first time that leading Ukrainian officials is saying such a thing. And given the fact that Trump has said that he will contribute to bringing the Ukraine crisis to an end, one can only hope that the proposals being made to Russia by Trump will take into account the absolute essential security interest of Russia, without which an agreement is not possible. But it's a very tense situation, and the short answer to your question is I'm pretty confident that these things are underway.
Well, I'll see you on Friday, Helga, at the next meeting of the next Zoom call of the International Peace Coalition. Our viewers can pick it up from the Schiller Institute website. There's a link to it. And Helga, thanks for your joining us today, and we'll see you then.
Okay, till then.